According to Ian Rappaport, Jay Cutler has signed a one-year, $10 million deal with the Miami Dolphins. Yes, Jay Cutler is coming back to football, and apparently, according to his Fox deal of becoming a broadcaster, they had him in a three-man booth, so it made him more likely to, or more preferably and more favorably for him to possibly get signed and play football in the 2017 season. It's a lot different than a two-man booth. Obviously, that's standard, but if you get a three-man booth there, it's a lot easier to recover than a two-man booth. And the booth he was going to be with originally was going to be Charles Davis and Kevin Burkhardt. So when you look at that, I believe these are like the the announcers in the game. And when you look at that, I think to myself that Jay Cutler might be in football shape. That's one of my biggest concerns because he's definitely a guy that has that I don't care kind of attitude with him. So his attitude was always kind of a negative part of his game. And when I look at that, I think that looking at his health is a big concern right there. Now, when it comes to Jay Cutler, obviously he's a better fit for the offense compared to a Colin Kaepernick, just because, for one thing for sure, you know what Jay Cutler is going to give you. He threw for 28 touchdowns and 11 interceptions in 2015 when he was playing under Gase. I think I've basically said that in 2 other videos I've made about a similar topic. And also, when you have that familiarity, it's going to be a lot easier to step in there just for before a month just to kind of get used to the offense. Now, obviously, I think Jay Cutler will have to get used to not having a receiving back because Jay Ajayi isn't the best receiver back in the world. I would say he's middle of the road. He's average. So if Dion Lewis possibly gets onto the market due to a cut or something, I think that's definitely a guy that they should go after. I think he's going to be a very interesting one. They can also trade for one. I'm not sure if Jaquez Rogers, if he's on the market at all, or if a possible, I would say a Charles Sims maybe. That might be an interesting one, but I kind of doubt it, and I think that they just might make a Jay Ajayi try to do some receiving right there, but if I have to pick one on Dion Lewis. And the reason why I say that is because Jay Cutler isn't the fastest person in the world, and when he was there in Chicago, he had a receiving back there. And usually guys who aren't the fastest in the world usually have receiving backs. Think of Tom Brady. Tom Brady was never the fastest guy in the world. He's always had a Kevin Falk, a Danny Woodhead, a Shane Vereen, a Dion Lewis, a James White. He's always had someone there just because he's not on the faster side versus a quarterback with more mobility. If you look at a Russell Wilson's running backs aren't usually typically receivers. That's why you have an Eddie Lacy, a Marshawn Lynch, or Thomas Rawls. Obviously, they can receive. That's just not their main purpose. So ideally, the receiving part is more of a luxury for mobile quarterbacks, while for quarterbacks that stay into the pocket a lot is definitely something they prefer having that receiving back just to check it down because they don't usually have the mobility or they just don't use their mobility to do that. Now, if you remember back in 2011, Jay Cutler was sacked 80 times in one season. Yeah, that's a lot. And so I think he would definitely appreciate having that receiving back there. Also, when you have a Jay Ajayi. Now, I know they trade Brandon Albert away for Julius Thomas, who Julius Thomas should work in Miami. I've already explained this multiple times, but the reason why Julius Thomas will work in Miami is because instead of running short routes, he's going to be running deep routes. It's a lot better. It's 2 different offenses from Jacksonville to Miami. You have a more deeper passer game in Miami versus in Jacksonville. You have more short passing game, and Julius Thomas can still be a threat deep. Obviously, that's where he was at best at Jacksonville, but Jacksonville tried to use him on more short routes, which isn't really his forte. So get that out of the way. So Jay Cutler definitely does make a lot of sense here. I feel like if you would argue the Colin Kaepernick argument, I guess you could say that, well, you get a quarterback that's mobile. You get a quarterback that's also already had an offense planned out for him that Adam Gase already made. I think Adam Gase actually brought out a full-out playbook to make an offense around Colin Kaepernick, which is actually quite interesting. So I feel like if you have Colin Kaepernick there with Jay Ajayi, that would be an interesting triple option, read option, kind of a college-ran offense. But ideally, when you look at Colin Kaepernick, though, Colin Kaepernick's a project. That's my biggest concern with Colin Kaepernick. If you have a project out there for a quarterback that usually is going to take a season. You usually want him to sit the back, and he's already 29. He's not really worth it. If I would have to pick one between RG3 and Colin Kaepernick, I would probably pick RG3. So I look at that. That's why I see the Kaepernick there. Now I know that the owner of the Miami Dolphins was in support of the idea of Colin Kaepernick's Black Lives Matter protests and kneeling for the national anthem, standing up for the idea of the black community against police brutality. He did make a stand on that, but it looks as if the owner, I'm not sure if the owner has any care or concerns about this. That's definitely one thing about it. So when I look at this concern part, I really feel that I'm not sure if he's mad about the move that he didn't bring in Colin Kaepernick, but I definitely think if you bring in Jay Cutler, you try to go for a win here, especially when you just made the playoffs last season. And if you could get that consistency, that's pretty good. If you can make, I think their goal is trying to make in the next four seasons under Adam Gase, so including in 2016. So in 4 seasons, maybe 3 of those are playoff berths. I think that would definitely be a goal for Miami to do. Bring free agents. Obviously, Miami is a warm place. It's not exactly the NBA where it's going to be more attractive, but that's the idea. They want to win, and that's why they're paying Jay Cutler $10 million, which is a decent amount of money, I have to say. That's a decent amount for a guy that's not very good, in my opinion. Now, I think Jay Cutler is a bum, and I thought they really should have stuck with Matt Moore, because I look at Matt Moore, he's a legit backup quarterback. I think, even though Total Pro Sports, it's another YouTube channel, I don't always agree with them, but they label Matt Moore as one of the top 10 backups in the league. Yeah, he's definitely up there, because whenever I see him in 2011 and 2016, it's nothing but good. Obviously, if you're going to face a good opponent, he might not really stand that much of a chance, but I also look at him and I think to myself, no, I see the production out of him. Miami isn't the most talented team in the world. Obviously, they roster-wise, they have athletic players, but it's not necessarily, it's the quality of the players. They're not necessarily the best in the league. They're definitely not bad, but not the best. It's a very interesting team, especially when Miami was a more quiet playoff team than the Detroit Lions in 2016. So that's definitely something to look at. And so when you bring in Jay Cutler, it's going to be very interesting. I think they're really serious about going to the playoffs this year, and I'm not really surprised that they went after a retiree at quarterback. They did that with Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was a guy last year that they contacted. It's a story I reported early on, like a month ago or 2 months ago, whenever it was. I reported that Adam Gase was going after Peyton Manning. And that was quite interesting. And he did this with Jay Cutler. And Jay Cutler said he was going to permanently retire. It looks as if Jay Cutler had no faith in himself coming back to football, which might be a concern. He might be lying, but that's still a big concern if he basically never thought about coming back. So it just shows not too much confidence right there. And I think for quarterbacks, you're going to need to have confidence in this league. And maybe he will have more confidence with Adam Gase as his OC. Who knows? But that's definitely something that's going to be interesting right there. And so I'm not sure if the confidence might play a factor, because when making big drives down the field. Because Miami isn't one of these offenses. It's definitely a pretty good offense, but it's not the Atlanta Falcons where they're going to bury you and all that. It's going to be more of this kind of team where they're going to try to win games 20-17. Like, those are the kind of games, and you really want a confident quarterback to win those games. The ones where he can play in a roller coaster battle or play in a close game, however you want to call it. You're going to want that. I'm not sure if Jay Cutler has that. Jay Cutler usually is known for having a poor attitude. Versus Matt Moore, I would rather get him in. I think he's good. I think he has something that prove. And Matt Moore's been in the league. He's not young. I've seen him in 2011. He might have been here since 2010 or 2009. I think the Miami Dolphins might be his second team or something. But you have something there with him. And I definitely look at that and think to myself, yeah, they should have done that. But I guess you're going to have Jay Cutler here. When it comes to Colin Kaepernick, does Colin Kaepernick still have faith to get signed? He might not. I don't know. A lot of people are being pretty pessimistic with his opportunity and his signs, and I kind of understand that. And I made a video on it. I made a video why he's a bad NFL quarterback. I also made a video why his expectations for being signed and whatnot. Will he play? I've done that. It's in the link description. My last video I'm not going to put there simply because it was on if Jay Cutler were to go to the Dolphins. I already did that. So I'll see you guys later. Peace.